What do you offer us, cowardly Zidanni? What can you hope to give us when you lick your wounds and expect us, the people of Rome, to help you? I offer you power in Asia, senators of Rome. I offer you the legitimacy that has long been denied by the Greeks. You will call yourselves Trojans from now on, no longer Romans. Need I remind you, Zidanni, that it was Priam who ignored the advice of Hector and Paris? Who is to say you too are a Trojan horse? Then know this. Help me and I will bring Roman rule to Asia Minor, wiping out the powerful Hellenistic empires. Should you help me, I will bring myself to submit at your mercy. I need your backing, fellow Trojans, for will you not help a Trojan?
In the long campaigns ahead that was to come for Troy, Nicomedia had also been taken by Zidanni, but Zidanni wanted to conquer all of Asia Minor. And for Zidanni, the biggest problem he had was regaining the trust of the Trojans. The Trojans were once his fellow people, but he had turned against them. And while he had taken the backing of Rome, Rome didn't like him either. The Romans treated him as if he was a lapdog, as if he was something not to be trusted. And so Zidanni thought, what do I do? What is the thing that I need to do to convince the people of Troy to help me, to help become their emperor? And of course, he knew that Perduti wouldn't be able to raise armies. Perduti was weak. Unlike Tamitani, who had been strong for a while, Zidanni still commanded the support of the people. And when he went to war against Galatia, they gladly supported him, because they knew the Galatians were just barbarians, stinking. They were not the civilized people of the civilized world. They were stinking. They weren't civilized people. What were they? Zidanni took Ancyra and the people celebrated. All the Trojans were celebrating. And then they lost Nicomedia. They were going to lose Nicomedia anyway. And so while the king had appointed a general for it, that general was too lazy and too weak. And soon he would appoint Duvia to go and attack Nicomedia for the time being. But trouble was coming. The gods had looked at the omens, and for Troy to succeed, they would need to deal with more threats, as was the declaration of war from the Thessalian League, and their allies, the Spartans, were joining. There were rebellion, revolts, anything you could name of. And Zidanni was meanwhile trying to pacify the people, destroying the rebels, doing everything he could. Basically, the leadership was in a stability of crisis, and the gods were testing them. The gods were making sure that these Trojans would be tested if they wanted to become the superpower of this world, just like Rome was going to become one day. Then the descendants of Aeneas would have to be impressed by the descendants of Hector, not by the descendants of Paris, that weak and ineffective prince who was nothing more than a stupid. Zidanni, meanwhile, had conquered Nicomedia. And he had also conquered Ancyra as well, basically throwing the Galatians out of Galatia. And he often had to disband most of his troops because they were putting financial strain on the economy. And he often gained the ire of King Perduti. And the Galatians offered a peace treaty. And Zidanni, meanwhile, accepted it for the time being. And of course, he accepted it of his own accord, not of the accord of the king of Troy, but of the accord of himself. Basically, Perduti didn't trust him, but Perduti knew that Zidanni was the only general that could lead Troy to victory. And then news came to him that Nicomedia had been lost, and Zidanni, meanwhile, had conquered Ancyra without telling the king. And immediately, King Perduti sent Duvia to go and conquer Nicomedia. A great battle was about to be fought, and soon war would come. War would come indeed. And in the meanwhile, the treasury became so empty that the people rebelled, they revolted, and they demanded justice. They demanded that Zidanni be punished. But Perduti refused to listen to his advisors. He could be a potential rival to General Zidanni. Doreah's victory against Nicomedia would prove to be short-lived for a time being. Because as much as Doreah wanted to conquer Nicomedia, he knew that Tylis would come back and take the province of Nicomedia. And soon there were riots, there were revolts. And while Troy's generals could go and conquer these territories, they were always going to face some shortage of money. And the Macedonians and the Seleucids weren't making it easy for them. They were blocking trade. They were going to the city-states and telling them, oh, don't trade with Troy. Don't do this with Troy. Don't do that with Troy. In the meanwhile, Paduti had adopted another son who was willing to prove his loyalty to him. And so, that son killed Sukilla, the treacherous queen who had betrayed Troy just like Helen of Sparta had done. But Paduti was not impressed. And then he took Doreah because Doreah was more loyal to the Trojan family, to the descendants of Hector. And that outraged the adopted son. And meanwhile, Zidanni watched all of this from his capital in Ankara. He was building popular support while he went and looted around the map, and he destroyed and killed and slaughtered at his own mercy. He knew he had to stop most of his sins, otherwise the people wouldn't back him. And who would back him? And during this time, Knossos had begun to lead an army to besiege Pergamon. And King Paduti had sent in force to defend Pergamon for the time being. And another great battle was about to be fought. What terrible blows we immortal gods must endure because of our differences, whenever we treat these mortals with kindness. Ares, after being wounded by Diomedes in the Iliad, Book 5. One could say that the victories achieved by Troy were pretty much exactly that. The Greek city-states and the Greek empires were watching, but soon trouble and turmoil was to come onto Troy. And Zidanni meanwhile was being blamed, and while Doreah was being seen as the savior of Troy, Troy was going under immense pressure. And Knossos sent an army to attack Troy once again. In the first battle, Troy had been victorious, but now the men of Knossos had brought an entire army. Who would win? Only the fates and the gods would tell.